Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Gaming the System, the podcast where three intersectional feminists examine gaming and games through a feminist lens. I'm your host for today. I'm Jem, and I'm here with my friends Alex and Matt. So before we get started, if you want to support us, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gaming the system for some exclusive content, or you can send us a one-off donation via PayPal to our email address, wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com.
Epic, Warner Brothers, Disney, and basically it provides some guardrails around AI in order to protect performers' voices and also their likenesses within games. So I don't know if if you remember, we have talked about this a couple of times on the pod, in that AI is coming for all of our jobs, but it's definitely coming for voice actors and, well, I mean, they're more than voice actors because they often go in there and do all of the physical acting as well these days. So the acting for games, because these figures are digitalized and the voices are digitalized, it obviously makes it a lot easier for AI to be utilized to take these people's voices, their likenesses, and port them into the games. And then you can obviously potentially get away with not paying them anything or paying them a much reduced price because you only need them to come in and do a much smaller amount, and then you can utilize those elements of them. And obviously that's a massive issue for these actors. And so we have talked about it before because it is a big issue when it comes to workers' rights. And so they've been striking since July 26th last year, and they're still striking right now until this agreement is ratified. However, it looks like they might have made some progress in this discussions. So what happens next? Well, the National Board of SAG-AFTRA has to endorse the deal, and then they have a union-wide vote on it. And then if that goes through, then they will formally end the strike, and then the work can kick off again. So hopefully that will happen, and hopefully it is a good deal that the actors can get behind. But yeah, I just wanted to bring it along today because I think it's really important. I think the impact of AI, something that I'm actually, when it comes to AI, artificial intelligence, is a very broad term and not really what we're talking about, but it's an umbrella term that we're using to describe this new computer computer intelligence. And so if you're using sort of ChatGPT, things like that, Gemini with Google, and there's all sorts of things. I'm really excited about it. I think it's really fascinating and really interesting, but we have to start dealing with these things. So I think it's been really good that the voice actors have made a stand and demanded some reassurances, demanded some guardrails be put in place around this, because I think that's what we're going to need to do in many other industries. And this will be quite an interesting thing for in the future for people to look at and see as, you know, guidelines for how we go in other areas of the working world. So I was just wondering whether you guys have heard about this and what your thoughts are on it, really.
Everything about it worries me because one of the critical lessons I learned when I was doing courses about union organising is that the function of a union is constant vigilance. You don't agree to one thing and then go, oh, that's okay, it'll be fine from now on. You have to realize that the people that you're negotiating with are going to try and squirm and screw you over in any way that they possibly can. And they've proven that. The reason this has taken a year to get somewhere tentative is because the companies that they're negotiating with don't want to negotiate. They're dragged kicking and screaming to negotiations because of strike action. And it's just, I haven't seen any union that is militant enough to make me relax into it, because the union side of things, they always have to be so reasonable and so accommodating and so gradual and gentle and soft in the way that they negotiate things, when the other side can do literally whatever they want, anything underhanded they can think of. What unions need to do is to be as cutthroat and brutal as the people they're negotiating with, because this isn't two partners coming to agreement on the best way to do things. It's a cutthroat business, a capitalist corporation that the profit is the only thing that matters to them. You're not working on the same level. So the only way that you can get them to negotiate in good faith is to do something that is really punishing for them, which is, you don't have to go, okay, we're going to, in 3 weeks' time, we're going to go on strike for the weekend, or all the planning things, all the regulations around striking that we have in the UK, because corporations have bought our government, so it makes it incredibly draconian for any union organising here. Whereas what you need to do is go, okay, this weekend we're going on strike for a month, and we're not going to talk to you for a month. We're just going to go on strike for a month, and then after that we'll talk to you. We'll have our first negotiation of what you want, rather than going, oh, can we talk about this? Oh no, we'll go on strike a little bit later. No, you need to be militant and aggressive and go, this isn't pussyfooting around. This isn't a game. This is serious stuff that is going to matter incredibly powerfully in the next few years. But it'll only stick if the unions go, okay, if we sign this deal, we're not safe. We can't relax forever after this, because they're going to go, oh, we've actually created this brand new AI that is almost as good as any voice actor, so we're just going to use that from now on. The future is just too uncertain, and every union that I've seen is too soft. And so when I see things like this, it's better than there being no union not doing anything. But at the same time, it hasn't stopped any of the mass layoffs that have happened in the last year. It never feels like we've won something substantial and permanent, because it's very easy to celebrate a victory in one battle, but then if you lose the war, then it doesn't matter. And we need to be thinking of, so we need to win this war. And it's still just, it worries me.
Yeah, I think the tentative part is obviously not anything concrete yet. And you've got to wonder, because they've been striking for a very long time. It's been a whole year almost. For it to have taken this long to even get to a tentative agreement shows how much, they haven't really budged on anything up till now, which I think just reiterates Mark's point, to be honest. So yeah, there's a little worrying, and I just feel for everyone involved, because at the end of the day, it's their livelihoods at stake. So it's not an easy thing.
No, I mean, the devil is in the detail, isn't it?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that, and I haven't read up on that, but yeah, I mean, and as you say, it is a constantly changing situation. And at the moment, these are not two partners who are working together to come to a mutually beneficial conclusion. And really, we have to work towards that, actually. We have to work towards a scenario where that is the case, where it isn't adversarial. It's about, this is happening, we want to make as much money as possible. We want to have, we want to get paid for doing a job and not be made redundant. How do we reach a conclusion that works for everyone? It's not a collaborative. We're not in a collaborative world at the moment. And I think, sadly, we're seeing a shift to a more oppositional attitude really across the board, I think. And so, yeah, I think that is a problem. I think that the question is, what is the alternative at this point in this current climate, in this current situation? The power of the unions and the power of the individuals is limited. And, I think that's the issue, isn't it? Is how far can people go to withholding their work is kind of the edge of it without getting into a sort of more militant activities.
Well, that's
I think that what we're seeing in the US right now with... No, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, that's the mindset that certainly we were brought up in, and definitely America's brought up in lots of, and all over the world, is that institutions have power, corporations have power, wealthy people have power. They get to exercise power. Individuals, normal individuals, they don't get to have power or exert power equal to these things that we've been told these are the ruling class, they have power. We can't possibly match that kind of power. And that's the biggest, I think, the biggest mindset that needs to be broken out of when union organizing is done. Because the course that I did, and the core thing that the woman who was running that course was, you need to get a supermajority of workers, and a supermajority is 90% of the workforce. That's the hardest thing to do. That's where the hardest work of unionizing is building up to that 90%. And then the truth is of that, if you can get 90% of the workforce to act in unison, you have equal power to whoever is on the corporate side for that. That's just maths. It's just fact, is this 90% of people acting in unison is equal to that power. And then what I want, which is the militant side of thing, is rather than building, if you say you build up that 90% and then you go, okay, guys, we've got enough power now to force you to negotiate. Let's have a conversation and see what happens. And then if it doesn't go our way, then we'll strike. When what I want them to do is build up that 90% and then do something big and just damaging to the company in terms of going, right, it would be good for, if we're partners on both sides trying to come to the best thing, you go, oh yeah, we'll strike for 2 weeks, for a weekend in 2 weeks' time, give you plenty of time to do it. Whereas you need to go, right, we're going to strike for a month. We've built up a strike fund that is enough to support us and all our people for this amount of time. And we're you need to flex. You need to go, oh yeah, we're equal power here. And when you go like that, you go, that's when we can start having, that's the perspective, the mindset you need to be when you're coming up with your positions. Because if you start from, oh, what can we meager things can we expect from where we are, you go to, we can ask for anything that we want now, and go from that place. And yeah, I just want it to be okay.
I was reading when I was refreshing my memory on it, because obviously it has been a year. There is actually a huge majority. I think it's about 98% of the people in that union voted to strike, which is an incredibly high percentage. So there is the appetite there for fight.
Yeah, that's so that's both good, and it's also it's a bit of, so basically the two like metrics that you have are so what that says is that everyone who is a part of the union, 98% of the union members vote to strike, which is good, which means that they're all on the same page of what they do. The supermajority bit is about the percentage of the workforce that is part of the union.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So if you've got
That makes sense. Okay.
so if you've got 1,000,
I don't know that.
yeah, so if you've got 1,000 employees, and then 200 of them have unionized, and then 98% of them vote to strike, that isn't
actually that many people. Yeah.
Whereas if you get 900 of those people in the union, and then 98% of them strike, that's
okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is definitely power in numbers, and that's why so much of what we're seeing going on now is about dividing us, because then we're much more easy to push around. So, I think that leads us nicely on to the next topic, which is about Grand Theft Auto publisher who have swapped out or the term DEI, for diversity of thought in their annual report. So in 2024, there was a clear diversity, equity and inclusion section, which called out support for LGBTQ plus rights, scholarships for minority game design students, social justice efforts, and employees celebrating cultural differences. And that language has been stripped out of the 2025 report. And diversity is only referred to in the phrase, and quote, "We firmly believe that diversity of thought drives the innovation that is integral to our success." And they've taken the DEI section and they've rebranded it as community and engagement. And they've also removed references to LGBTQ plus awards and other aspects of that those factors have been taken out. So they do talk about how they want everyone to feel that they're respected and heard, and that everyone has a place, and that they value the importance of having different perspectives and all of that. But they've basically taken out the very clear language in their annual report. So they are not alone in this. There are other organisations who are doing similar things at the moment. We're seeing Activision Blizzard and Electronic Arts are doing it. And then we've also got other bigger media organisations like Disney, Google, etc., Intel, who have all been making changes. Now, I'm pretty sure that we all know that this comes down to a lot of the stuff and the rhetoric that's been coming out of the American administration since Donald Trump entered the White House in January. No, when was it? Yeah, it was January. It was only in January. Yes, yeah. So, this is in line with that. But it's also, we're sort of seeing this general shift away from from the DEI support. Now, there's different perspectives on what this actually means. So some people saying, they're capitulating and they're changing their attitude, and this is just part of a general shift away from supporting diversity. Others are saying the day-to-day support of this within the organization is still there, but they're reducing it openly so they don't have to deal with people like Trump and his right-wing cronies complaining about it. So I suppose that is the question: is this a genuine move away from supporting DEI, or is it a sleight of hand to basically ensure that they're left alone and they can just get on with what they're doing?
I would hope.
And does it matter?
I think I would hope it's the latter, but I think both things can be true, and I think it depends basically on which side you fall on, how you choose to interpret it. Because with all these things, this is what's so interesting about language. It can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. And I was reading the article you shared with us, Jem, and it highlighted something that I immediately thought of when I heard the term diversity of thought. And I've got a quote here from the article where it says, "Diversity of thought may not be a problematic concept in theory, but right-wing personalities have adopted it as a talking point that can provide cover for racist, sexist, or transphobic views." I'd add ableist into that little pack there. But yeah, I think it can be used to kind of cover views that are discriminatory, that are aggressive and derogatory in nature, and say, oh no, it's my right to have that, to say these things because it's my diversity of thought, it's my free speech. It's fitting right into that side of things. So I think there will be people on both sides within the organisations that are doing these things. And I think there will be people fighting for DEI and for inclusion and accessibility in those organisations that will be using these terms as cover and still trying to do the work that they're doing. But there will also be those that will try and bend it to their advantage and say, well, I'm allowed to say that now because it's my diversity of thought. So I think it's ripe for manipulation, whichever side is on. And it's an interesting but also particularly dangerous way in which language can be used to further people's agendas in ways that might not be good and might be problematic. So yeah, it's something in the arsenal of tools which right-wing people unfortunately are very keen to use. But I don't know whatever.
Yeah, I think
my take.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's really good assessment of it, actually, Alex, because it's that aspect that even if it's been done with the best will in the world, even if it's been done as a way to sort of keep people off their backs so they can carry on with it, the potential for the wording change to be used by bad actors is significant. And so even with the best of intentions, it's really problematic, and they've chosen to take this step. And I think, this is a side step from what we're talking about, but for me, it's been one of the hardest things that I've had to kind of get my head around since Trump came into the White House, is how quickly and how easily so many organizations and people have fallen in
Yeah.
to lockstep with his views. There's been, I mean, obviously there has been pushback. We've seen that from the courts. We've seen that in what's happening in LA with the riots at the moment. We are seeing plenty of people standing up against it. But I've been shocked and dismayed by how many organizations, people who I would think had more backbone,
Yeah.
that they've basically turned around and gone, yep, sure, we'll do that. When it isn't even law. It's just the words of a man. It hasn't, a lot of these things. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the presidents don't use executive orders to this degree, because they don't have any holding power. They have to go through the full process in order to make these things stick. Doing an executive order can just immediately be undone by the next president. So it doesn't have longevity. So, and yet, Trump says something and everyone's sort of like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. The next day, almost instantly. And you just think, no, it didn't have to. You could have just faffed about for 6 months. I mean, nobody's going to complain. Things take ages to get through any kind of system. So the fact that people have so quickly picked up on this has been really disappointing. And yeah, I think changing the language in this way, this is so easily, so quickly, is problematic, whatever their motivation. What about you, Matt?
The foundation of the right wing populism and the global right wing rising is it's founded on vagueness.
Good.
We talked about woke. Woke is as vague a term as you can get for something. Make America great again. That's as vague as something could be.
Yeah.
And the diversity of thought is as even more vague, because Trump is quite stunning in that it's his stupidity that allows him to be making these massive sweeping changes, because he just says the thing that a satirist would say, but then he's beyond satire to do, and the right wing grows further and further beyond satire, and their power is they have power over the institutions, but it's not to do the legitimate things the institutions do. It's to give them the freedom to do whatever they want. And I saw there are some serious disruptive riots happening in LA. I don't know anything more other than there's been violence and there's been arson and destruction of property. And someone asked a Republican politician what the difference is between what's happening in LA and what happened on January 6th in 2020, because the fact of it is people with a particular political view committing acts of violence in some way. And that's the problem. Just like with the union stuff, we're the left wing and the workers, we're not allowed to fight. We're not allowed to be as aggressive in whatever way as the people that we are dealing with, because just like with the George Floyd protest, a year of protests, a year of just sending the police in to beat the shit out of the protesters, and then nothing changes. That's what happens when the left wing tries anything, even if they're just peaceful protests. Throughout history, they get met with unbelievable institutional violence and aggression. And when the more vague guidelines and support, like words, like in any like diversity and inclusion and protected status rights thing is a terribly bad thing to happen, because it means that when you say diversity of thought, which means includes everyone, that is the buzzword for the right-wing people who go, that means I can do whatever I want and say it's diversity of thought. I'm not just being a piece of shit, which is how I feel because of the way I feel about people when people are protected. Now they're less protected. And then the thing that just cracks my mind constantly is the cognitive dissonance of them being able to say and do something and then say and do the exact opposite thing and still think that they're and still not have just gone mad from the two things existing in the same space. And it just gets more and more and more. I see a new word like diversity of thought and go, that's a joke from 30 years ago that someone would make when there weren't any black people in a business room. That's the sort of thing they'd put on the thick of it. Or Veep. That's, you go, why are there only, I haven't seen anyone who isn't a white man for ages. And it goes, oh yeah, we believe very firmly in diversity of thought. And that means that you can plead ignorance and innocence at any point because of how vague all the bullshit is, and it just makes me want to scream.
Yes. I mean, it's a watering down of their position, and I agree absolutely that it's the vagueness of it. And it's, as they say, it's always, that's where all the problems get in, isn't it? Those little gaps there.
I did read an interesting comment actually at the bottom of the article, which kind of reminded me that what all this is about is GTA. So I'll read it to you. It's from a commenter called Osprey Cosplay. They say, we've entered the age of discussing the ethics and standard of responsibility towards gender and race representation of virtual criminals, and I freaking love it. So lest we forget, GTA is basically a game where you play a criminal. And what we're talking about really is representation in GTA, I suppose.
Yeah.
If you think about it from that angle, which I completely forgot. When I was reading the article, that actually that's what the next game will be from Rockstar and from the publishers who are not Rockstar. Rockstar are the developers. But it's a fun and interesting reminder that actually what we're talking about is a game. But it just shows how, I don't know what the word is, I guess invasive this administration is across all areas of society, and how it's just pushing into all these different places, and it is a worrying thing to comprehend. But yes.
And you can slaughter the police and the army in GTA, and that's again the cognitive dissonance going. The same person who go, oh, diversity of thought, hate wokeism, hate political correctness, are also the Blue Lives Matter people who go, oh, the police should be able to do whatever they want. And then you can kill them and with reckless abandon in a game. And you go, well, what about those two things? You go, oh yeah. And then nothing changes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.